Hello and welcome to the 3D Blu-ray Bunker. This is a place for us die-hard fans of 3D where we exclusively look at 3D Blu-rays, not to review the film, but to almost entirely focus on the quality of the 3D on offer, with just a short comment at the end about the film itself. And today we're looking at A Haunting in Salem, a 2011 film from the Asylum. That's an outfit whose output I'm not familiar with, but I understand they specialise in cheap knockoff movies. Nothing wrong with that, and this one seems to fit that description pretty well. The aspect ratio is 1.85 to 1, and as the Blu-ray case proudly claims, this was shot in what they refer to as true stereoscopic 3D. And right from the beginning, the native 3D seems to be working okay. This bathtub looks unquestionably like it was filmed in 3D, although the effect is slightly spoiled when we cut to this view where they've had to include some CG steam, which is unfortunately two-dimensional, presumably for budget reasons, but overlaying that on a 3D view of the bath does look a little bit odd. Most of the film takes place inside this house, or in its grounds, and this shot is pleasingly three-dimensional, which is a good thing as we see the same shot 5 or 6 times throughout the course of the film. A problem that I think the production came up against is that the film's setting doesn't allow for a massive amount of good compositions for the 3D to really shine. I'm assuming it was shot in an actual house, as I guess the budget here is too modest for sets to have been built. So for a lot of the time there probably wasn't a great deal they could do to stage the rooms to optimise the 3D. Some of the times that you get the feeling they were doing what they could but with limited opportunities are shots like this, where a chair has been put in the foreground. I'm not saying it's interesting, but it looks like it's been done for the benefit of 3D. In fact, I think they like the idea of a foreground chair so much that they do it again later in the film, this time going all in with this rather bizarre composition, but that chair is definitely giving the 3D a chance to show itself off. I think it might even be the same chair they used earlier. There are other examples where they look like they've done their best with what the indoor location offered, like they used a 4-post bed, which at least gave them something to sit in the foreground during scenes in the bedroom. There's this often used view of the staircase, which we see people going up and down several times, or here in the kitchen, the worktop has a pleasing amount of depth to it as it stretches back into the frame. But if you think that's all rather banal, one of the most three-dimensional shots inside the house is this bin. It's definitely 3D, but maybe not all that interesting. Outdoors, I think things are generally better. When we first see the family arrive at the house, their approach down this road has some very satisfying depth to it. It's not a classic shot, but it's good 3D nonetheless. There's also an aerial view, which looks a little bit hyper stereo. Nothing thrilling, but the church and surrounding trees here are quite pretty, and they look like they were filmed with the camera rig cranked up to its maximum interaxial. There's some nice separation of the roses here. It's a shot that looks better here with the native 3D camera than it probably would even in a mega budget conversion. So it's nice to see them doing something that only works properly when you shoot in 3D. Native 3D tends not to like reflections, particularly reflections off black surfaces, and there are quite a few of those here. There's this dead bird on the floor here, which the left eye view it's seen as black, and in the right eye view its wings are quite bright. There are other possibly poor choices of props in the film showing the same problem, like a belt, a bedspread, a book, all of which I thought could have been easily avoided, as well as some others that probably couldn't be avoided, like shiny floors and the staircase. Like that chair earlier, there's a slightly funny attempt at staging the frame by making sure there's something in the foreground in the shape of this rather lonely looking leaf. I suppose it's better to have it there than not, but it does kind of draw attention to itself as an obvious, albeit not particularly brilliant bit of 3D composition. The weirdest piece of composition in the film is this hanged body with a chandelier obscuring its face. You might think this is a plot thing to disguise who it is, but that's not the case at all. And it's not just this screen grab where the chandelier's in the way, it's there the whole time the camera moves across the scene. It certainly helps to offer some noticeable 3D, but it just kind of looks a bit peculiar. There are some more natural-looking examples of solid 3D compositions in the film, like this shot which makes perfect sense in its framing, and it works nicely in 3D, and looking up at this hanging body is a good moment where the depth offered by the 3D helps to bring out the impact of the scene. There do seem to be maybe a few missed opportunities for more powerful uses of 3D in the film though, and that's maybe its biggest stereo downfall. Whilst this shot is clearly in 3D, the falling body remains behind the plane of the screen. It's probably something that with more time and money the shot could have been arranged to allow the body to shift into negative parallax, but I'm pretty sure that time and money weren't in a large supply on this production. There's also a scene where the daughter uses a baseball bat, but they never do the obvious thing with it, which they also avoid doing with some other natural 3D props, like this bit with a spade, which stays in positive parallax, as do, more unforgivably I think, these shears. I say it's unforgivable, which is very presumptuous of me, as it's possible that they very intentionally wanted to use 3D in a classy way and avoid gimmicky pop-out shots, but I think they should have kept in mind that this is a cheapo knockoff horror film, and in all honesty there's not much about the film that you'd call classy, so I'd have thought they'd have done a bit better to embrace the kind of movie they were making and shove those shears right in our face. As a quick aside from the 3D, one of the most interesting things in the film is the casting of the two leads. As a fellow named Bill Oberst Jr. plays the sheriff, and I don't think I'm stepping out of turn if I say he doesn't really have the traditional leading man looks. The woman playing his wife, on the other hand, Courtney Abiati, looks about half his age and is gorgeous. As the film unfolded, I assumed this was a plot point of some sort, but no, they're just presented as a regular couple. And at one point, before all the supernatural stuff kicks in, he jokingly says to her, "Do you believe in witchcraft? Because you've put a spell on me." And from where I'm sitting, Bill, it's you that seems to have put a spell on her. Anyway, to be fair, I sort of enjoyed his performance here. All in all, I don't think anyone's going to regard this as great use of 3D, but if you're going to watch the film, this is definitely the way to do it. On the Blu-ray, there's a brief making-of extra featurette, during which the stereographer, Shannon Benner, appears standing in front of her 3D camera rig explaining the process. She's talking about how the beam splitter works when, in a quite extraordinary piece of editing, she literally gets cut off mid-sentence when they cut away to something else. It's really strange, and it's almost as if they're saying, yeah, okay, whatever, we're not interested in you and your pain-in-the-arse camera, and it seems incredibly rude. It's a shame, as it's also good to see a female stereographer, and maybe she was learning her craft on this film and could have gone on to do great things, but sadly we know what happened to the 3D wave this time around, and if it ever comes back again, a whole new generation will have to relearn how to do it. A quick word on the film then. On the back of the Blu-ray case, this claims to be in the tradition of the Amityville horror and The Shining. I suppose there's nothing wrong with aiming high and comparing yourself to Kubrick, and no one's going to be remotely surprised when it doesn't live up to that claim. Amityville horror is much closer to what they're doing here than The Shining, and like that film, this claims to be based on true events. I'm not sure what those events were, but other than the fact that somebody once got killed and somebody else moved into a house, I think we can take that claim about as seriously as its comparison to The Shining. So it's a family of four, a haunted house, a connection to the Salem witch trials, and really nothing too unexpected. It's not all that brilliant, and you'd be crazy to expect it to be, I think, but I guess it's watchable if you know what you're letting yourself in for. The 3D isn't all that special, but if you're scratching around looking for a lesser-known natively shot film, then on balance I think this is worth a look. So I hope you found this in some way useful, and if so, I hope you'll join me again soon for another 3D Blu-ray review. Until then, thanks for looking in on this one, cheers for now, bye-bye.